I'm thrilled and honored to be the new executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights of the San Francisco Bay Area. This organization was founded on the belief that only by coming together, working in community, can we achieve our goals of immigrant justice, economic justice, and racial justice. We know that we all need to come together through collective action to continue to dismantle systems of oppression.
We represented a man named Carlos Murillo. He spent 14 months in immigration detention, and he spent all but 2 weeks of that time in solitary confinement. He was in a tiny concrete and steel cell. He could touch both sides of it when he reached his hands out. You get 1 hour outside of your cell. That hour was spent in a tiny little wire cage. It's in a prison yard. The prison guards called it the kennels. People would complain if we put a dog in that situation for 14 months.
This case is an important kind of shining star in the constellation of cases that LCCRSF has brought with partners, challenging the impunity and barbarity of ICE detention.
When he came out, one of the things that was so amazing about Carlos is that he wasn't thinking of himself. His priority was to take care of all the people that he had been in there with.
LCCRSF is, as we say, small but mighty, and we need pro bono partners like Braun Hagee Borden to be able to leverage our public interest mission.
We filed the case, we did a lot of discovery, we did multiple depositions, and then the private prison filed for summary judgment saying that our claims were essentially worthless. And the judge's order in response to that was pretty extraordinary. He completely dismissed all of their arguments. He acknowledged that the treatment that Carlos endured was horrific. And shortly after that, we reached a settlement.
To be able to work with a client who's been wronged in a very severe and barbaric way, and to be able to bring some measure of justice to that client's experience, that's really the dream.
Our hope is that the case that we filed on Carlos's behalf and the summary judgment ruling that we obtained on Carlos's behalf will serve as a model for other people in other circumstances where private prisons decide that they're going to maximize profits at the expense of human beings. They never are held accountable because the people that they're torturing and the people that they're abusing are subsequently deported, and they count on those people not having a voice. What made this case so important to me and to Carlos and to LCCRSF is that he was willing to be a voice for all of the people that don't ever get to complain about being treated this way.
The asylum program approached us at the data and analytics team at FTI to offer some help with looking at a bunch of client relationship data. They wanted to get a better picture of the landscape of the current cases that hadn't been closed yet in order to have a better matching system with asylum seekers and pro bono attorneys.
FTI's analysis has helped us identify the asylum program's biggest supporters over the years so that we can continue to build on those relationships and bring in new volunteers to ensure representation for as many asylum seekers as possible.
The biggest takeaway I had of looking at the data about the asylum program was that it's been a huge success. There's been over 600 individuals that have been granted asylum through the asylum program over just the past 20 years.
Last year, our asylum program helped over 70 people secure asylum.
Our goal was to make the process of matching individual asylum seekers with attorneys more efficient.
Helping somebody secure asylum in the US is a collective effort that requires support from so many people.
I'm not an attorney, I'm just a numbers guy. Whatever your skill set is, you're able to help.
The Legal Services for Entrepreneurs program is a community empowerment project out of the Economic Justice team at the Lawyers Committee. Our program provides legal services to low-income small business owners and entrepreneurs of color.
It offers legal support to entrepreneurs that might otherwise be excluded from the ecosystem.
Ibrahim has been able to support small business owners in navigating those legal challenges and making sure that they are set up for success.
I grew up in a family that started and ran a used car business. My father's an immigrant. I experienced a lot of the challenges and barriers that our clientele at the LCCRSF face. We actually got linked up with great advisors through some local programs. They came to our assistance. Today, that's the type of focus that I like to bring to my work.
We recently had a small business owner that had moved to San Francisco from Thailand, and she was eager to set up a restaurant business.
Regulations, permits, requirements. San Francisco, it's not a particularly easy place to navigate all that, especially when English is not your first language. We figured out, okay, this is the checklist basically, gave it to the entrepreneur and said, hey, this is what you need to do. All she needed was that list. She got it done in like a crazy fast amount of time. You know, it's sort of like you're this key that can unlock an incredibly talented person.
It's clear from our clients' feedback and our returning clients requesting to continue working with Ibrahim that he has the incredible ability of making our clients feel seen, heard, and valued.
I was able to come in on opening day for lunch. I remember waiting at the door, and this entrepreneur opens up the door, big hug, and it just felt like the culmination of so much hard work. And all those topics that we had talked about abstractly were so real in the moment. And I carry that probably the rest of my life, just those memories.
We can't do the work for racial and economic justice without forging meaningful partnerships with partners who are directly connected to the impacted communities. And the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation is a perfect example of such a partnership.
At SFHDC, our focus is to create financial stability and empowerment for the African American community, as well as economic development of the Bayview and the Fillmore neighborhoods.
We collaborated with SFHDC to design and develop legal workshops on business law related topics and issues that were relevant to supporting Black-owned businesses.
The Lawyers Committee has supported our Minding My Black-Owned Business cohort, where we're teaching 32 African-American businesses at a time, business development over a 3-month period.
Dedicated pro bono partners worked with the Legal Services for Entrepreneurs program to present out these legal workshops.
You know, we're able to teach African-American businesses and just get them to that starting point that everyone else is at. You know, my grandmother wasn't able to read. My mom still was drinking from an all-black water fountain, going to all-black schools. So we just were not afforded the same education opportunities.
Our work for economic justice is rooted in racial justice. When we have an organization like the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation that have taken a more targeted approach to help repair and restore the Black economic prosperity that once existed there, that's an incredibly energizing and necessary strategy.
We have In the Black, which is a retail store that we opened up for 18 Black businesses to share. We just really want to give our community all the tools that we didn't inherit to be able to become generationally wealthy and to be able to pass this knowledge on.
We were approached by community groups in San Francisco back in 2018 to talk about the problem of poverty tows.
San Francisco, like many municipalities across California, had a practice of towing safely, lawfully parked vehicles solely on the basis of unpaid parking tickets, especially with low-income individuals. They can't afford to pay these tickets. Their vehicles get towed, and then under the code, if they fail to pay their parking tickets within a set amount of time, the city will actually sell those vehicles at a junk auction. The money from that sale typically goes only to cover at most the actual cost of the towing and impoundment of the vehicle. So you have this completely ridiculous process where the city loses money, where low-income individuals are deprived of vital assets that they need. And the only party in the process that makes any money off of it is a towing company.
And what we came to learn is that that's not just a San Francisco problem, it's a California problem, with hundreds of thousands of people being at risk of these tows and tens of thousands of people actually experiencing these tows.
We argued in the Court of Appeal, Munger partnering with the Lawyers Committee and Bay Legal, that in fact the tows were illegal under the California Constitution and under the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution because the city is required to get a warrant before towing lawfully and safely parked vehicles. In the record in this case, we really sought to educate both courts, the trial court and the Court of Appeal, as to the pernicious effects of these tows. So we put in declarations by people who spoke about the fact that they were living in their car with their daughter to escape from, for instance, domestic abuse. And then their vehicle was summarily towed on the basis of unpaid parking tickets.
This was part of a much larger campaign effort involving grassroots organizing groups, a coalition of lobbyists and legislative advocates who have been looking at the data on what it means to punish people for being poor.
On the day that the decision came out, San Francisco stopped its policy and practice of warrantless poverty tows. But because of the way the California Court of Appeal works, it's a precedential decision that applies across California. That means that across California, towing a vehicle without a warrant that is safely and lawfully parked solely because the owner has failed to pay parking tickets is illegal.
We're starting to dismantle the systems of economic oppression, of fines and fees, those small little things that bleed people dry and deprive communities of color of wealth.
Lawyers Committee keeps an eye on the bigger picture. We have this litigation, but we never get lost in the litigation. The litigation is always part of a broader mission.
The work that we do means that even if we help just one small business owner, we are impacting the lives of their family, of their community.
That ripple effect, to me, is very gratifying.
It affirms my belief that as human beings, we're all interconnected.
There is so much work to be done. It's just not possible for nonprofits, even with tremendous expertise as we have, to meaningfully carry this work alone.
The Lawyers Committee is really focused on the most vulnerable members of our community, and they allow us to devote our legal resources to helping those vulnerable members of our community.
It's also a really valuable experience for lawyers to have because it brings most of us back to the reasons that we became lawyers in the first place.
We know that this work is so big that we can't do it alone, and so we really continue to encourage all of you to come together to support us. We're calling on you, our community, to help us in any way that you can. We all have a role to play in this fight for social justice.